I've always said the biggest thrill that I had in baseball was not the 2 home runs I hit in one World Series game in Milwaukee, my hometown, or not winning the first World Championship in '58. In retrospect, my greatest thrill was batting second in the lineup before Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle. And to me, a kind of thrill like that is something that I will cherish the rest of my life.
Mantle and Maris. Dial M for murder. And Mickey reaching at home plate.
When people think of Roger Maris, they think of that 61 home runs, but Roger Maris was one of the best all-around baseball players I ever saw.
Once again, the 3-2 delivery. Drive to deep right center field, way back there. And this ball is caught one-handed by Maris, leaning over the railing.
You got Ford, bases loaded, and nobody out, okay? You were in trouble. That's how tough he was.
Whitey ready again. The pitch is strike three swinging. Whitey struck him out. Struck out 2 men here in the 9th inning to win the ball game.
But I don't care if it was 154, 162 games. This man hit more home runs than anybody in baseball in 1 year.
Here's the windup. Fastball hit deep to right. This could be it. Way back there. Oh,
Pinstripe Power, the story of the 1961 New York Yankees.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
With the inauguration of John F. Kennedy in January of 1961, Americans had a young, vigorous leader to guide them at the beginning of a new era. At Kennedy's urging, the space age took off in earnest, while other aspects of new American technology were becoming apparent almost everywhere people cared to look. Meanwhile, in baseball, the New York Yankees were also intent on replacing the old with the new, and Casey Stengel, the team's 70-year-old manager, was one of the first to go.
Well, for the main reason, as I explained to you, or Mr. Topping explained, that there is a program that's going on with the Yankees, and it has an annuity program, and the annuity program means that after a certain length of time, some people think you should retire. Now, he's of the opinion that you should retire, and his other partner, Mr. Webb, Del Webb, is of the same opinion.
Stengel's replacement was Ralph Houck, who was much younger and supposedly much tougher than Casey.
Ralph, as a World War II Ranger and winner of the Bronze Star, the Silver Star, and the Purple Heart, people think of you as a pretty tough guy. Are you going to be a tough manager?
I think, Tom, that I'm going to be a ball player's manager. I'm not a tough guy, and also I guess I'm not an easy guy. But I just want the boys to play hard, which I'm sure they're going to do, and I just want to handle the fellows where we get the most out of the ball club and that they get the most out of themselves.
I really didn't feel that much pressure because I'd had a lot of the players at Denver and AAA ball, and of course I had coached for Casey the past 3 years, so it wasn't like taking over a ball club that I didn't know all the players and know their capabilities.
Houck and new general manager Roy Hamey were handed an extremely talented team to work with. And as spring training progressed, the Yankee players were pleasantly surprised to find that their new manager had a decidedly different way of motivating them than their old one.
Well, Casey was a man that was a little bit difficult to play for. He would bring the most out of you. He would mold you together as a team. But sometimes the way he did it was make you so mad you would want to go out and prove him wrong. And so he was difficult. He got the most out of you, but he did it in a way that you didn't always appreciate. Ralph Houck was just the opposite. Pat on the back, constructive criticism in the confines of the clubhouse, but he got results, and I just enjoyed playing for Ralph a lot more than Casey.
Another reason Richardson enjoyed playing for Houck was the new manager's reliance on a set lineup, most notably at second base and shortstop.
Ralph just said, here it is. Go out there and play. I know you can handle left-handed pitchers, right-handed pitchers. If you're not going to hit this guy that particular day, I know you'll help us another way, whether it's defensively or just breaking up a double play or sacrificing a runner long.
When Ralph Houck came in, he said, hey, listen, it doesn't matter if you hit 150, you're my second baseman, and you'll be batting second in the lineup. And that confidence that came from him made you a better ball player, and certainly did me.
So that spring, the Yankees infield was set, with Moose Skowron at first, Richardson at second, with his former minor league teammate Tony Kubik at short, and Clete Boyer at third. Under the guidance of Houck and Johnny Sain, the pitching staff was falling into place too. Ralph Terry was starting, along with fellow right-handers Bob Turley and Art Ditmar, as well as lefty Whitey Ford, who in the off-season had found out he would be pitching every fourth day.
My wife Joan and I were at a basketball game in Madison Square Garden, and Ralph and Betty Houck were at the same game. I think Kansas was playing, and that's where they're from. And between the doubleheaders of the basketball game, I spotted Ralph, and I congratulated him on just becoming manager. He said to me, he says, could you pitch every fourth day? And I says, you're damn right I can. I felt so good when he said that. He says, well, when we go to spring training, you're going to pitch every fourth day, you know, when you work yourself up to 6, 7 innings. And we're going to try you to pitch every fourth day starting with the 61 season.
Unfortunately, the Yanks' upbeat attitude eroded somewhat when they struggled through the spring, despite the presence of the incomparable Mickey Mantle and 1960s MVP Roger Maris.
We went to spring training with a new management team, and the Yankees won 10 games and lost 19. It was the worst record in either major league in spring training. And Ralph Houck kept assuring a very nervous Roy Hamey that he would, once the season started, don't worry, this is a great team and we'll start playing ball for you.
Although he didn't know it yet, Houck would of course turn out to be correct, as his Yankees were about to begin their greatest year of all. In 1961, Americans were entertaining themselves by twisting the night away, as Chubby Checker's dance became all the rage. At the movies, the picture to see was Spartacus, while at home, the lovely Donna Reed lit up the airwaves on TV. Meanwhile, in April, new manager Ralph Houck and his Yankees prepared to leave sunny St. Petersburg and come north to New York, where they hoped to entertain their fans by getting off to a flying start. At first, everything seemed to be going the Yankees' way. The team rebounded from an opening day loss to win its next 5 and continued on to win 13 of the first 18. But the Yankees then slumped and lost 7 of the next 11. So despite their apparent abundance of talent, the Yankees' record stood at a decidedly mediocre 17-15 through the first 32 games, with the team in third place, 5.5 games behind the league-leading Detroit Tigers. But not all the Yankees got off to a bad start. Mickey Mantle, for instance, began the season with a flourish under his new manager. The Mick hit 9 home runs in his first 18 games, thus becoming just about the only Yankee with any positive early season statistics.
The team didn't start like people thought. The team didn't start off very well in April and May. If not for Mickey in April carrying the team with his home run bat, taking the pressure off Ralph Houck and the rest of the team, we could have been in big trouble.
Roger Maris was perhaps the most notable of the slumping Yankees, especially since his first home run didn't come until the 26th of April. After that, however, Roger reoriented himself to his home run trot by hitting 10 in May, including one game when he and 2 other teammates each hit 2 homers apiece. Meanwhile, on the mound, Whitey Ford was busy proving Ralph Houck a prophet. Whitey did indeed thrive on pitching every fourth day, and his early record of 6-2 showed just how good he could be.
It's really interesting to be a second baseman where you can see all the signs. And Whitey was one of the few pitchers that called his own ball game. The catches would go through the motions of giving signs, but on most occasions, Whitey would actually give the signals himself. And it was just interesting to see him set hitters up.
I used to say to Ford, Whitey, a lot of times, I'd say, how come you never shake a guy off? He'd say, it doesn't make any difference to me what you call. He said, if I got my stuff, he said, they ain't gonna hit, you know, they won't hit it anyway.
To me, he never beat himself, you know. He's always got the ball around the plate. He pitched a game in 2 hours was a long game for him, and it makes guys like to play, you know. So he would be my pitcher. Out of everybody I've ever seen, he would be the guy I'd like to have starting.
One of the reasons Ford was able to win with such regularity was the Yankees' defense, which at times went unnoticed.
A lot of people, even the years back, not only the 61 club, but definitely think of the Yankees as a great power baseball club and always the home run type ball club. But the 61 club, and I think a lot of the clubs before that, people overlooked their defense.
Much of the success of that overlooked infield could be attributed to the closeness of the shortstop and the second baseman.
Tony and I, first of all, we roomed together. We had a lot in common, but at the same time, respected each other, and I think he respected the way I gave him the ball. I certainly liked the way he gave me the ball. Warmed up together before the games. I think we really just got to know each other so well that we knew and anticipated the right throws, the speed would be there, and we could make the plays together.
You know, Bobby really was the team leader in the infield, I think. He was the guy that played every day, played hurt. If he was in a slump or if he was hot, you didn't know it. He was like Whitey. You couldn't tell. They never had high spots or low spots, which was really good for a team. They just stayed on an even keel. But Bobby had as good a range as anybody in the game. Nobody was quicker on the double play than Bobby in the game, and nobody had the leadership qualities that were admired in the clubhouse.
Kubek and Richardson was as good as anybody could ever be. Cletus Boyer, I think, was as good a fielder as Brooks Robinson, and I think Brooks Robinson was great.
Time after time, the Yankees infield bailed out pitchers in trouble, and their 180 double plays during the year led the American League. Still, with all their fielding, pitching, and hitting, the powerful Yanks found themselves in an unexpected struggle with the surprising Detroit Tigers. Even though the Yanks finished the month with 7 wins in their last 10 games, they still found themselves in third place, a game and a half behind the Cleveland Indians and 3.5 games behind the league-leading Tigers. While in the great home run race of 1961, Mantle led Maris by 2. As the 61 season heated up, so did world events. A CIA-backed force invaded the Bay of Pigs in an unsuccessful attempt to oust Cuban leader Fidel Castro, while in Germany, the Berlin Wall divided the city and the people who lived there. In baseball, the Yankees finally began to live up to their preseason expectations when they won 12 of their first 15 games in June. Everyone was contributing, especially Tony Kubek, who hit in 19 straight. But it was the M&M boys who really got the team going. Mantle continued to exhibit his awesome power from both sides of the plate by hitting 11 homers in the month. Maris, in fact, did even better. At one point, he hit 8 in 10 games on his way to 15 for the month. By now, people were beginning to take notice of Rogers' home run exploits, and he was continually asked to explain why.
Well, I started out my first year as a spray hitter, and I was changed around into a pull hitter, and well, the last 8 years I've been playing, I've been pulling the ball, and of course I've been hitting more home runs, a little bit less of an average. But I think it's paid off a little bit more to have a little less of an average because I've been getting the home runs and I've been getting the RBIs.
Another reason why Roger was able to get all those homers and RBIs was his enviable position in the Yankees' batting order.
I think it helped Roger a lot that I was there. You know, I know it helped him a lot, me hitting behind him. You know, I don't think he got one intentional walk that year.
I think Mickey really set up Roger's entire year hitting the 61 home runs. Roger had hit the home runs, but because Mickey started off so quickly, Roger kind of faltered along the way. They just wouldn't pitch to Mickey the rest of the year. Batting fourth, they would rather pitch to Roger, and I guess that's one of the great trivia questions. Roger Maris didn't get one intentional walk that entire year.
At the same time the Yankees' bats came alive, Whitey Ford did his best to silence the opposition by having a phenomenal month.
June was probably the best month I had. For some reason, I pitched the first day of June and was able to have 8 starts in 1 month, which, you know, is unheard of. You know, you figure there's 30 days in a month and to get 8 starts, and I think I won all 8 of them.
Whitey did win all 8 of them, and incredibly accounted for over 1/3 of the Yankees' 22 wins in the month. Still, on June 30th, the Yankees remained in second place, 2 games behind the Tigers, while Maris had made a move and overtaken Mantle in home runs. With a young and dapper first couple in the White House, fashion really came to the forefront of American culture in 1961. The times were definitely changing, and for the first time in years, the outrageous began finding its way into the American mainstream. Meanwhile, in July, Yankee wins remained status quo, thanks to a pitching staff that had been reconstructed a few weeks earlier.
I guess it was in June, if I remember right, I changed the pitching staff. We traded Ditmar and got Daly, who became a big help for us that year. And I moved Terry and Stafford into the starting rotation. Turley was having trouble with his arm. And that, as well again, as we were talking about pitching, that sort of turned our ball club around.
Ralph Terry wound up with 16 wins and only 3 losses in '61. And along with Raleigh Sheldon, Jim Coates, and Bill Stafford, the Yankees had more than just Whitey Ford to throw at opposing hitters. In fact, with all their hitting, the Yankees staff in '61 was probably a lot better than people gave them credit for.
Pitching staff was underrated, I think, because of the home runs. Nobody heard of Ralph Terry, who won 16, or Bill Stafford, who was second in the league in ERA. Raleigh Sheldon came up from D-ball, or Jim Coates would come in and just blow people away as hard as he threw. So the pitching staff was underrated, I think.
What wasn't the least bit underrated was the Yankees' catching, with a versatile trio that included Johnny Blanchard, perennial All-Star Elston Howard, and Hall of Famer-to-be Yogi Berra.
I've only really had 2 catches my whole career, and that was Yogi and Elston, and you couldn't choose between them. They were both great at catching. You know, they both were so sharp when it came to working with the pitcher, getting the weaknesses of the batter, and you know, just keeping the pitcher going.
Of course, Elston Howard could do a lot more than just work with a pitcher. With Berra on the downside of his great career, Elston was the Yankees' first-string catcher in '61, and he was as good defensively as anybody in the American League. At the All-Star break, Howard was also proving that he was the best hitting catcher around, too. In fact, his .369 average topped the entire major leagues, a statistic which didn't really surprise his teammates.
Well, I knew that Elston would have been a star on any other ball club. And when I first saw Elston and saw the tools that he had, I thought, my goodness, the Yankees are really fortunate to have him.
So it's 2-away, and here's Elston Howard, leading both leagues in hitting. Elston Howard. 2 out, nobody on, no score, top of the second. Yankees and the White Sox from Comiskey Park in Chicago. Now the 2-1 pitch is a drive deep to left field. That ball has gone way back. Tremendous home run. Man, Ellie really tagged that one. What a shot that was.
On those occasions when Howard was rested, 37-year-old Yogi Berra often filled in with much the same results.
A drive is pitching him outside, delivers a curve swung under the high drive, deep to right, and it is another home run by Berra.
As a hitter, Yogi probably was, I think, the best clutch hitter that I saw. In a given situation, when you needed a hit and you needed an RBI, he was the guy you wanted up there. Didn't matter what his age was.
Johnny Blanchard was the 3rd Yankee catcher in '61, and although all 3 played some games in the outfield when they weren't behind the plate, they'll be long remembered for a remarkable feat.
Our catchers hit 60 home runs that year. Nobody knows that either, I don't think. Elston Howard hit over 20, Johnny Blanchard hit at 20 or more, and Yogi hit it over 20.
They did get quite a bit of playing time in other than behind the plate. And I never forget one time that year we were playing against Hank Bauer, and he was trying to make changes to beat us, and I still had Blanchard on the bench, and I could have Howard. And every time he'd make a pitching change, I could send up another hitter, use another catcher. And he finally just looked at me across the field and just threw his arms up and says, "Go ahead."
Meanwhile, in July, Mantle and Maris began to get people thinking about the possibility of someone breaking Babe Ruth's single-season home run record. Ironically, on a day when both Mantle and Maris lost homers due to a rainout, Commissioner Ford C. Frick ruled that even though the '61 season was expanded to 162 games, the person who broke Ruth's record would have to do so in the same 154 games it had taken the Babe.
Ford Frick was commissioner. He made some reference about an asterisk, was criticized severely for it. Of course, he was Babe Ruth's biographer at one point, and he was defensive of Babe Ruth. And I can understand people's feelings on something like that.
Babe Ruth was, he made baseball like Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus made golf. You know, if it wasn't for Babe Ruth, I'd have probably been a minor the rest of my life. People probably might not have even liked it. You know, he made it. But in the same instance, I don't think you could hit with a 45-ounce bat in today's games. 61 home runs is a hard thing to do. I don't care if it takes 200 games, you know.
On July 25th, Maris inched ever closer to the Babe when he hit 4 homers in a doubleheader against the White Sox. On that day, the Yanks hit 8 as a team and moved into first place. The next day, Johnny Blanchard stole some of Maris's home run thunder when he hit 2 himself. Earlier in the week, on successive days, Blanchard had won 1 game with a pinch hit grand slam and tied another with a pinch hit homer. And his 2 on July 26th made it 4 homers in 4 consecutive at-bats.
Well, I knew what I had going. I mean, I knew that 4 was some sort of record. Yeah, I knew that. And I missed the 5th one by about just an inch. A kid named Robinson, the White Sox right fielder, just caught it. A little bit more. But I'll take the 4, you know, I'm happy.
Blanchard was just one of a group of Yankees who made up the team's powerful bench. With talent like the Yanks had in their starting lineup, the reserve players never gave their role a second thought. In fact, they even had a name for themselves.
The Scribinis were the Scrubs. Well, on that ball club, there were so many stars on that ball club, on that 61 ball club, that Hector Lopez and myself decided that we were scrubs for the big boys. And we were glad to do it. I mean, we were happy doing it. In fact, we enjoyed our role. So if I get a home run or a single or something, it made our Scribini team that much more. You know, we were big in this World Series. You got your Bears and your Howards and your Mallons and Marises, but the Scrubs were they were just a joke. We had a lot of fun with it, though.
As a co-founder of the Scribinis, Hector Lopez had a lot to live up to. And in '61, he often came through in the outfield when he was needed. Throughout the season, Houck juggled his lineup expertly, and the other Scribinis, like Bob Cerv, made the most of the opportunities they were given, both as substitutes and pinch hitters. As a result, the Yankees went 20-9 in July, and at the end of the month were in first place, a game and a half ahead of their season-long rivals, the Detroit Tigers. While in the home run race, Maris remained slightly ahead of Mantle. In 1961, New Yorkers chose to elect Mayor Robert Wagner for his 3rd successive term. As for the city itself, the Summit Hotel opened on Lexington Avenue, while the movie Flower Drum Song opened at Radio City. Meanwhile, up in the Bronx, the zoo was closed by a workers' strike. While in the borough's other, more famous landmark, the Yankees set about bringing another pennant to New York. It seemed as though nothing could stop the Yankees during August, even when Ralph Houck was suspended for 5 days for shoving an umpire. Frank Cossetti took over and won 6 of 7 games as the Yanks won 11 of their first 12 in August. For some time now, it was also apparent that Whitey Ford was having his best year ever for the Yankees. In fact, it was now only a matter of time before Whitey would reach a personal milestone.
I'd heard so much from the writers and people about, you've never won 20. I'd won 19 a few times and 18 a lot. But I'd have to say that it was because I didn't get enough starts, really. My percentage was good, but when you get 32, 33 starts, it's kind of hard to win 20 games. So when, when Houck came along and I was getting 38, 39 starts, it made it a little easier.
Actually, there were a few things that made Ford's quest for 20 wins a little easier. The Yankees' awesome lineup was one, and another was a new pitch called a slurve that Ford had learned from pitching coach Johnny Sain. But all else considered, perhaps the biggest reason why Ford was able to win 20 was reliever Luis Arroyo, who came to Whitey's rescue all season long and fittingly saved his milestone 3-1 win over the Angels on August 10th.
I think Ralph Houck knew that I had never pitched, every 4th day, and I wasn't big, I wasn't overpowering, but he knew that sometimes around the 7th, 8th inning, I would start getting tired, especially pitching every 4th day. And if I had thrown a lot of pitches during the game and, you know, we were a couple of runs ahead, he'd bring in Louis. And in fact, if he'd finish a game that I had started and, you know, did well, which he almost always did, I'd be in the dressing room first, and I'd have 2 beers right over in Louis' locker, open and ready for him to sit down, and we'd talk about the game.
We had a Arroyo that year to come in from the bullpen and finish ball games, and I've always said and still feel that an outstanding short man in the bullpen that can just close a game out is more important than a 20-game winner.
The following winter, I got an award from the New York baseball writers. I guess it was the Babe Ruth Award that you win for the most valuable player in the World Series. And when I accepted it at the Waldorf Astoria, I told the baseball writers, I said, you should have another one written in Spanish for Louis, because yeah, he was the reason I'm getting this award, the great job he did in our bullpen in 1961.
Meanwhile, as August heated up, so did Mickey Mantle and his home run hitting teammate and foe, Roger Maris. On August 13th, both Mantle and Maris hit their 45th home run of the season. And by now, rumors were circulating that although the two were close in the home run race, they weren't very close to each other.
That year, there was a lot written about me and Roger not liking each other, and that's the farthest thing from the truth that it could ever be. I don't think we ever had an argument. We appreciated each other. I know I did.
There was no rivalry. It was mythical. I guess because Ruth and Garrick supposedly didn't shake hands after one or the other hit a home run. They figured, hey, the analogy's there. So many years later, we've got 2 guys challenging the record, and there's got to be something wrong between those guys. And they wouldn't. I mean, I think the proof in the pudding is that they roomed together for 3 or 4 months. I mean, if they had such animosity, what would they be doing staying in the same apartment, eating breakfast together, driving in Roger's convertible every morning to Yankee Stadium from out there? It wasn't there, and everybody on the team knew it. It was a mythical thing that somebody contrived, almost like a media event, and there was no rivalry. There was no dislike, no distaste for each other. They loved each other, not just as ball players, but as human beings, and I think people forgot that.
Mantle and Maris weren't the only Yankees affected by their chase of the Babe. The situation touched on the entire team, and despite the fact that both were their teammates, many of the Yankees definitely had a favorite.
I know that all of the fellas at that time, and this is certainly not a put down on Roger, but they were pulling for Mickey to win the home runs championship. Maybe because they were trying to break Babe Ruth's home run record, and he was a great Yankee, and they thought Mickey should be the appropriate one to do that.
So you got to remember, Mick had been there like 10 years prior to Roger coming over to New York, and he was the favorite. He was Mr. Yankee and so on, and I think maybe the ball club as a whole probably felt Mickey might have deserved it more so.
Whoever deserved it more, one thing was becoming clear. In late August, both were well ahead of Ruth's pace, and people really began to believe that at least one had a chance to top the Babe.
Casey, do you think that Maris or Mantle will beat Ruth's record?
I don't see why they haven't a great chance. Mantle was one of the few ball players that I ever had that could hit 50 home runs. He did that in 56. Just think of it. He hit 51 home runs. What's the difference now that it's 61, that he can't do it again, or that he can't add 12 more? He's ahead of the record. I thought he'd hit 55 the same year, but he hit 51. So he's got a great chance. Why shouldn't Maris? Sparks built for him. He's a great ball player coming up, 26 years of age. He's got a great chance to hit it. He's a terrific player, and that's all there is to it. Both of them are so amazing and good that why shouldn't I believe they could do it? Because they did so many things for me the last season that I had them with the Yankees, or the many years that Mantle played for me.
By now, home run fever was sweeping the nation, and the Yanks were playing to capacity crowds wherever they went. In Los Angeles, Maris rewarded one such sellout crowd by hitting his 50th home run on August 22nd to become the first player in the history of the game to reach that plateau before the 1st of September. Still, the troublesome Tigers remained right on the Yanks' heels, just a game and a half behind, while Maris had taken a short lead over Mantle in their home run race.
I have today signed an executive order providing for the establishment of a Peace Corps on a temporary pilot basis.
The formation of the Peace Corps was just one of the many firsts in 1961. For instance, seat belts first became optional equipment in some cars, while in offices around the country, the IBM Selectric typewriter was first introduced. In the air, full-length motion pictures were shown on board airplanes for the first time, while on the ground, the first-place Yankees readied themselves for a September showdown with the second-place Detroit Tigers. On September 1st, a crowd of over 65,000 saw Moose Skowron come through in the clutch. With the score tied at 0 in the bottom of the ninth, the Yanks had Elston Howard on third and Yogi Berra on first with nobody out. Skowron promptly singled to left, and the Yanks had a 1-0 win. Not only did the victory give them a 2.5-game lead over the Tigers, it was also relief ace Luis Arroyo's 10th consecutive win. The next afternoon, Roger Maris was the hero as the Yankees battled back from an early 2-0 deficit.
Tigers 2, Yankees 2, 6th inning. There it is, a long drive in deep right field, and the ball is gone. Number 52.
Later in the game, with the Yankees comfortably ahead, Maris hit another.
There goes Tony, and there's a high drive to deep right. Martin going back, and the ball is gone. Number 53.
Maris's 2 homers helped the Yanks increase their lead to 3 1/2 games with a 7-2 win. But the Tigers threatened to regain a game the next day until Mickey Mantle came through in the ninth.
Mantle, who homered in the first inning, struck out twice since, coming up. Swung on, there's a high drive to deep right field. Look out now, Kaline, he is not going to do the home run. Number 50.
Mantle's dramatic homer tied the game, and shortly thereafter, Elston Howard came up with a chance to win it.
So with 2 away, Ellie's up. 5-all, 9th inning. Swung on, there's a high drive to left. Colavito going back, and the ball is going down. The ball is over. Elston Howard belted it into the left field stand for a 3-run home run, and the ball game is over.
When we finally won the pennant was when we beat the Tigers in Yankee Stadium there late in the year. And we won all those games by 1 or 2 runs, and that sort of turned the thing around. And then Detroit went into Baltimore and got beat, and we kept winning, and that's when it happened.
What happened was that the Yankees jumped to an 11-game lead, but their elation was tempered a bit when Mickey Mantle was sidelined after having a negative reaction to a penicillin shot. With Mantle now out of the home run race, Maris's assault on Ruth's record continued, both in New York and in stadiums around the country. In the Yankees' 142nd game at home against Cleveland, Roger hit his 56th homer and stood 3 ahead of Ruth's pace. But by now, the pressure on the 27-year-old Maris to succeed was almost unbearable.
I don't think there's ever been an athlete who's had as much pressure over the length of time that Roger did and handled it better.
Well, we tried to keep Roger relaxed, but Roger was under a lot of pressure. You know, the sports writers, some of them gave him a hard time, and he was losing hair, getting bald, and he went through a lot, but he coped with it.
You know, the press got around him. They would put a U-shaped pattern around his locker. And there literally towards the end there was anywhere from 25 to 35 writers around him. Well, the lockers have got a wire mesh, you know, and the guys would be in my locker asking them questions through the screen. Well, you know, so I was the only ball player in the ball club that had a confessional.
When did the pressure start building up on you, Roger? I wish someday, and I'm sure that after this is all over, somebody's going to really write the story of this severe pressure.
I don't think it was so much the pressure of playing the game of baseball, but answering the questions of the press day after day, so many fellas, and every day your photographers, you come out in the field, and all day all your time before the ball game is spent with the photographers, and after the ball game it's the writers, and before the game it's the writers, and between the two of them, boy, it was just a real pleasure to get out there and play the game.
Roger, your bat has helped the Yankees move into first place this year. How do you feel about being with the first place New York Yankees?
When you hit a ball here, do you know it's going to be a home run the minute you hit it?
Do you think the Yanks can go all the way this year, Roger?
What about the way you hold the bat? Have you been holding it the same way all your baseball career?
Do you think that you can beat the Babe's record?
You've been hitting the same way?
Thank you very much, Roger Maris, outfielder, New York Yankees.
Maris faltered a bit after his 56th homer and hit only 2 more in his next 9 games. A few days later, with the Yankees about to play game number 154 in Baltimore, Roger needed to hit 2 homers to tie Ruth in the required number of games. For him, it was almost too much to take.
I think it was in Baltimore, if I remember correctly, that Roger had come in to talk to him and didn't want to play that night. And I didn't know whether it would do him good not to play or play, but the place was full of people, and I said, well, you know, why don't you start the game, and if you feel bad and want to get out, I'll get you out of there right away, which he agreed to do. But he wound up playing the whole ball game.
Maris not only played the entire game, but in the 3rd inning, he inched 1 step closer to the Babe and his record.
There's one. It is going. It is going. It is gone. Number 59.
Unfortunately, that would be all the home runs Maris would hit that night, and his attempt to catch Babe in the required number of games fell short. But all was not lost for the Yankees that night. Their 4-2 win over the Orioles clinched the American League pennant and put the Yanks in the World Series for the 26th time. While the pennant race was over, Maris's quest still remained the focal point of baseball. And in the Yankees' 158th game, Roger joined the immortal Babe.
2 outs, nobody on. There it is. There it is. If it stays fair, there it is, number 60. Standing ovation for Roger Maris, who got number 60. And they're calling him out of the dugout. This is most unusual. They are asking him to come out of the dugout. Now this is something. They are standing and asking Roger to come out. Come out, Roger. How about that? Come out of there.
With 4 games remaining in the 162-game season, Maris seemed to have an excellent chance to pass Ruth. But after he failed in his first 3 games, Roger needed to hit 1 on the final day of the season.
Then you got a handful of people sitting out in left field, but in right field, man, it is mobbed out there. And they're standing up. Here's the windup. Fastball hit deep to right. This could be it. Way back there. Holy cow.
All of us, every guy in the dugout had goosebumps, you know. It really was, and their heart would go like a trip hammer. And because it was probably the most exciting thing that's happened.
I remember he came in the dugout and we were all talking, Roger, you know, tip your cap, and we pushed him out. I remember I pushed him out, and then he tipped his cap, and that was something that I will never forget.
Another standing ovation for Roger Maris. And they want Maris to come out and take another bow. He does. And if his teammates are pushing him out there, he wants to get down, they won't let him.
The ball, of course, was a valued prize worth a great deal of money, and it wound up with Brooklyn teenager Sal Durante.
I knew it was going over my head. I jumped on my seat right away. Jumped right up on the seat, reached as high as I can go, and right in.
Oh, forget it. I didn't know what happened. And I was screaming, John was screaming, we didn't know what. Then the security guards came and they took him, and I kept saying, where's he going without me? I didn't know anything, I didn't know what was going on.
It was obvious that we had to get that baseball. It was obvious that we had to identify it, and we were going to make something of this event.
They wouldn't let me take the ball out of Yankee Stadium. Okay, and so I agreed to put my initials on the baseball, and that's the way I left it until I went to Sacramento to meet Roger, and we did a publicity stunt there. He was supposed to meet me in Sacramento and exchange the ball. The restaurant owner would give me the $5,000, I would give him the ball, and in turn he'd give Maris the ball as a gift.
The restaurant owner was Sam Gordon of Sacramento, California, who not only received a great deal of publicity, but was named that city's Man of the Year.
And I'm going to present this ball to you, Roger. I'm making you a gift of this ball for you to do with it as you see fit, for your own personal memoirs, or to put in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's a pleasure.
Maris got the ball and Durante got his money, along with some sage advice from the people who presented it to him.
Are you going to let the money go to your head? And I said, no, it's going into the bank. It has to be the happiest day of my life.
Of course, it must have been the happiest time of Maris's life, too. The day he became baseball's single-season home run leader. So when the '61 regular season was over, the Yankees had won an amazing 109 to outdistance the Tigers, while Mantle fell 7 homers short of Maris's mark. With the space age in full flight, Americans looked to the sky in 1961 and watched in amazement as our countrymen went higher, farther, and faster than ever before. The new technology in 1961 also brought us a car that was capable of driving through water as well as on land, and an astronaut named Alan Shepard who was capable of being sent into space. Meanwhile, Yankee fans were saluting a team which they felt was capable of winning the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds. Unfortunately, Mickey Mantle's infected hip was still troubling him, and the rest of the Yankees knew they would probably have to go into the series without their best player. But the Yankees were still loaded with talented players, and in Game 1, with Joe DiMaggio throwing out the first ball, Whitey Ford showed the Reds just how good he had been throughout the season and his career. Ford had finished the year with an incredible record of 25-4, and on this day, he once again got the kind of help he'd come to expect from his infield. Clete Boyer really stood out as he made one amazing play after another.
Throw to Gurnett now. He hit a ball that Boyer stopped. One of the really fine, great plays in World Series.
61 to me was like, this is your life story to me. I made 2 or 3 great plays in the World Series, and that was such a thrill to be able to show off in front of the whole world, show your talent off.
Ford showed off his talent too, as he shut out the Reds 2-0 to give the Yankees the first game of the series. But the next day, the Reds came back to win 6-2, and the series shifted to Cincinnati's antiquated Crosley Field, tied at 1 game apiece. The Reds were playing the Yankees much tougher than anyone in New York had expected. And in Game 3, they took a surprising 2-1 lead on the strength of Frank Robinson's bat. But the Yankees tied the game on a Johnny Blanchard pinch hit homer in the top of the 8th. And then Roger Maris came to bat in the 9th, having gone 0 for 10 in the series.
There's one. It is deep to right field, and that ball is going, and it is gone. Roger Maris gets his first hit of the series, and you could tell when it left the bat that it was gone. And the Yankees lead 3-2.
On the strength of Maris's homer, the Yanks went on to win the game and take a 2-1 lead in the series. Then, the next day, the Yankees once again sent their master to the mound. And as he had done in the first game, Whitey Ford started out by blanking the Reds. Through 5 innings, Whitey kept Cincinnati off the scoreboard as the Yanks took a slim lead. But even more importantly, Ford's 5 shutout innings extended his string to a phenomenal 32 shutout innings in World Series play. That enabled Whitey to break Babe Ruth's record, even if he didn't realize it at the time.
That was the best kept secret in baseball. About the 5th inning, I didn't know it, but I had broken the record. And I was coming off the mound in Cincinnati, and a lot of people got up and started applauding, and I didn't know why, because not many people applauded for the Yankees in Cincinnati. And I realized that a couple of the players in the dugout knew about it, and they shook hands, and then I realized what it was, but it was a pretty well-kept secret. And it's a record I'm very proud of. It's probably the one record I'm very proud of.
The Yankees were also proud of the fact that Mickey Mantle insisted on playing when the series came to Cincinnati, despite the condition of his infected leg.
The thing I remember most was Mantle, and I think he dominated the scene at that time, the fact that he was injured, the fact that perhaps there was blood showing through his uniform, and yet he would play. And because he played, we all, I think, gave an extra effort.
The extra effort that Mantle gave was definitely noticeable in the fourth inning of the fourth game.
So there's a line drive base hit for Mickey Mantle in the left center field. And they're going to take Mantle out of the ball game, as evidently his side is bothering him.
You could see the blood coming out of his leg here, and when he took his baseball pants down, I couldn't believe what a big cut he had there. I guess the doctor had lanced it. It was just a big open sore there, and how he played it all, I don't know, but he did. He wanted to be in there, and he got his 5 or 6 innings in that day.
Led by Mantle's mettle and Ford's pitching, the Yanks won Game 4, 7-0, and the next day set out to finish off the Reds. In the first inning, Johnny Blanchard put the Yankees ahead 2-0, and from there they increased the lead to 6-0. The Reds, though, came back to narrow the lead to 6-3, but Bud Daly came on in relief of Ralph Terry and pitched 6 2/3 innings as the Yanks went on to win 13-5.
As Daly makes his pitch to Pinson, the ball hit the bat, flew out there in left field. In comes Lopez, made the catch. The game is over. The Yankees are champions of the world for the season of 1961.
So the great Yankee season of '61 was over. In retrospect, the players who wore the pinstripes that year just might have been the most formidable collection ever. Never before had a team shown so much mastery and domination, such elegance and power. There was Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, the M&M Boys, future Hall of Famers Yogi Berra, who was in the twilight of his career, and his battery mate Whitey Ford, who was at the zenith of his. At the bat, there was never a team with as much power as the '61 Yanks. Led by the incomparable Roger Maris, the Yankees hit a record 240 homers in 1961, a remarkable achievement by a remarkable team.
That was a great team. I think probably that's the best team I ever saw.
We had a great bench. I mean, there wasn't, they call it dead wood in baseball. We didn't have any dead wood on that team. Every guy had a job on that club.
I wouldn't have traded anybody we had defensively for anybody.
Ralph would actually start a fight. He was the kind of person that knew what it would take to spur that ball club on to victory.
Everybody was playing for one goal. It wasn't individual records. It was to win ball games and win a pennant and get into a World Series and win a World Championship. And nobody ever lost sight of that.
Well, the whole club had a great year, let's face it. They made it easy for me.